Cherie, and today we're going to be talking about Bedlam. This is the 12th book in the Skulduggery series and we're sticking with it, so let's just read the blurb. On a desperate journey to recover her sister's lost soul, Valkyrie goes up against the High Sanctuary itself, and there's nothing Skulduggery Pleasant can do to stop her. With Abysinnia's grand plan about to kick off in a night of magic, terror and bloodshed, it falls to Omen darkly to avert a war and save the lives of millions. As the madness unfolds around him, as hidden enemies step into the light, and as Valkyrie is sucked into a desperate, lawless quest of her own, Omen has no choice but to become the hero he never really wanted to be, or die in the attempt. So yes, as always, the blurb is super dramatic. In Midnight, we got to know that Alice's soul is actually damaged, since when Valkyrie had touched Alice with the Death Touch gauntlet, her soul was actually split into parts. And now Valkyrie is trying to recover that. So this is kind of adding to her PTSD, but this time instead of becoming depressed, she's kind of trying to fight back against everything. I'll just tell you about the book in the summary. So, as we said, Alice's soul is broken. So Val, she's trying to track down Nye. As you may remember, Nye is that Kringa who had carved that sigil into Val's heart to protect her from her true name, which was Darkness. Now they're trying to find Nye because he specializes in soul-related stuff, right? So they're trying to find out whether there's a way to actually save Alice and make her, whole again. Because as we get to know that Alice never gets sad. She's always happy. So obviously they need to make sure that Alice is able to feel other human emotions as well. Even though that might make her sad and stuff, but still, it's important. They're trying to find him at a bar. They don't quite get anything. Though, on the bar, they actually find magical drugs called splashes, which basically give sorcerers a boost of magic. This will be kind of essential to the later part of the story. And here, they find out that the city guard, which is basically this whole police system of Roarhaven, is actually treating all the residents, the mortal residents, horribly. So as you may remember, mortals have come into this dimension from the Leibniz dimension, and they're still kind of getting accustomed to life here, but the city guard is not quite being nice to them. So in this book, basically there are multiple plot lines going on at the same time, and that's why I might tell a somewhat confusing way, but if you read the book, you'll understand everything instantly. Now, China, she's like the superior person, right, in this whole thing. So she's the one who's controlling everything. She believes that Flannery, who's the American president in this book's timeline, his personal aide called Vikes is working for Abysinnia. Abysinnia, as you know, is this horrible villain person. China wants Skulduggery and Valkyrie find out where this Vikes person is, because she believes that this Vikes dude is a spy for Abysinnia and the American president. So yeah, even though Skulduggery and Val now they are arbiters, so they're no longer coming under sanctuary jurisdiction. They no longer work for the sanctuaries, but this is just a favor that China's asked them to do. And also, Serafina, who's Malevolent's wife, is going to come to visit China. Skulduggery and Valkyrie also need to be present over there just as a show of support, and since they are the only ones who can actually challenge Serafina's decisions. And now, one of the best parts of this book was when Tanith and Val had reunited. So Tanith, the last time we saw her was in Dying of the Light, but now she's kind of back, and actually she is kind of a rebel. She's been working against the African sanctuary because China is trying to control the African sanctuary, so that's why she's being part of the rebel group who wants the African sanctuary to remain under their control. So they meet, which is pretty cool and fun. Tanith, she wants to hand herself in to make sure the rest of the sorcerers along her don't get put into a gall. Now we get a little bit of an interesting sight over here. Remember the vampire Dusk, who we got to know about in Playing with Fire? He is actually talking to Val because Kazan, who is Abysinnia and Skulduggery's son, wants to meet with Val. So Val is considering this option of whether or not to meet him. She decides to meet him, but she doesn't tell Skulduggery about this. Then we also find out, so this is basically just an introduction for me to show you all the multiple things that are going to happen, and then slowly I'll reveal the story to each of them in a bit. One of the main things that's happening here is, which will be important to the later part of the series as well, especially like in Until the End. So basically, the Archcanon Creed, who's the main head of the Dark Cathedral, which is this church for the worship of the faceless ones, he's been doing experiments against people to see whether they are actually going to turn into faceless ones. Basically what we know is faceless ones, they mostly need a human to actually inhabit the body of, right? So when they used to walk this earth, some faceless one DNA had merged into that of a human, and that bloodline has been passing down generations and generations. So if a person thinks that they might have faceless one DNA in them, they need to go through this process called activation, and if they're not, they turn into kit. That's what they're called. Basically, their whole face melts over and they're just like emotionless beings. Val and Skull really want to stop that because that's like just not justified and it's horribly mean. There's somebody who's been, you know, spotted near White's house called Oberon Guile. Val and Skull, they decide to meet with Oberon because why not? This is the only person that they have a lead on as of now. So we find out that Oberon's son is being held hostage because Oberon's partner, who they are now divorced, their son is being held hostage so that Oberon's mother can actually convince the American population to vote for Flannery. So Flannery is kind of being this evil guy in league with this another person called Crepuscular Wiles. They are working together to control Oberon Guile's ex-partner by holding Oberon Guile's son hostage. Now we get to know a little bit about the corruption that's actually happening, and we believe that this is because Abysinnia has made it so, because she wants to be able to have control over the general American population as well, because their president is the one who will be making all the decisions. So that's how it's. Now Val has met with Kazan. So Kazan has a really simple exchange offer. He wants to know the location of Greymire prison, and in exchange he'll tell her the location of Dr. Knight, because Kazan wants K49 from Greymire. So K49 is apparently a cure or something, because Kazan's kind of mentally ill because he's been tortured upon for so many generations. Now Val talks this over with Skulduggery. Then they manage to get Greymire's location. We're actually trading in a secret with this lady called Mellifluous, I think her name is. Val, she goes exploring around Greymire to find this K49 thing, but on the way she gets some kind of weird unnatural gases being pushed into her, because of which she starts to see weird visions and hallucinations, how her life has gone. It's basically some kind of weird PTSD thing, but over here it's like hallucination of people who died for her, like Ghastly, Sandra Farrows, Finbar Wong, Billy Ray Sanguine, and because of her in her darkness form. So yeah, after this, Valkyrie's inner brain starts to get quite messed up, but she's finally found the cure, which is basically a little music box. And when she takes that to Kazan, he gets really angry and tells her that wasn't what he wanted. Now Val needs to give the location of Greymire. Val reveals Greymire's location to Kazan because she wants to know Nye's location. So yeah, now Val and Skulduggery, they travel to Nye. So this was one of the most funniest conversations that they've had in this whole series. Skulduggery tells Valkyrie the story of how he met Ghastly. So they met basically on a ship. I'm not going to spoil it for you because it's really funny to read. And they finally reach this underground place when Nye tells them that, so basically Alice's soul, it has been split into 3 parts. One is within Alice herself, but the other out there in the world. Now basically they need to use a soul catcher to get that piece of soul out from the other people that it's inhabiting as of now. First they meet this lady, and Val separates the soul and collects it. Then Val, she with the help of Tanner, the 3 of them, they steal a necromancy suit so that Val can actually get into the necromancy realm of the dead. And that's the realm that actually Skulduggery had visited, and dying of the light, Val could get the invulnerability protection thingy for like 9 minutes, remember? In which Scapegrace had actually decided to fight for Skulduggery. Over here, we also get to know about Sebastian Tao. So Sebastian Tao is basically this person who's wearing this bird face mask over here. That's Sebastian. He's trying to actually bring back darkness from the realm that she was put into. So yeah, he's trying to work on that. He wants darkness to come back. But we don't know the reason for that, but that reason will be revealed in until the end. And now, Val has finally gotten Alice's pieces of soul back together and joined. Since we know in Bedlam, actually you have different perspectives. One is focused on Val and Skull, one is on Omen, and one is on Abysinnia. I'm just going to tell you about what's been up with Abysinnia for this time. So Abysinnia, she plans on actually detonating a soul-sucking bomb in the White House when the American president will be giving his next speech in the book timeline. So Abysinnia has been working on that, and now we kind of see a really ruthless side of China Soros. We knew that she was not a very, very trustworthy person, but now Kazan had actually broken out one of the prisoners in that cell K49. So that's what he wanted, not music box cure that Val decided to get. But now China finds out that Val is the one who's been revealing information like that, and she's really angered, so she locks Val up. And now the city guard people who had, originally fired and kind of suspended for a bit because of Val and Skulduggery reporting on them of being so horribly rude to mortals and stuff, now they kind of start fighting Val. But then Val gets broken out by China because the High Sanctuary is under attack from all the prisoners after they're at the Iron Point Girl. So we know that Iron Point is still not under Sanctuary control. So now all of those prisoners have started attacking the High Sanctuary in Ireland. Now Val and China, they managed to teleport away with the help of Fletcher, obviously, where the real fighting's been happening at Pearl Harbor. So Abysinnia's plan was to actually use saucers to come in like as save the day rescuers, like Ravel had decided. But this time the president was actually smarter. He actually made his soldiers become so strong that they'd actually fight against all those saucers who had decided to join the first wave thing that was made by Abysinnia. So the first wave, in case I have not explained it before, was basically this group of students from Cordoval Academy, and they started to work with Abysinnia because they believed in her vision of saucers should rule everything. Now we have this whole battle at Pearl Harbor, and over here Abysinnia joins forces with Skulduggery and Val. Because all of these magic-powered mortals who have been, like these temporary but unstable saucers that have been made by the American government in the book. And here we get to know a really, really interesting revelation, and that is that Skulduggery is not Kazan's father, neither was Lord Vile. Kazan's father is actually Malevolent. Now the High Sanctuary sorcerers come over to fight against these powered-up fake saucers that were being created by giving them these splash sigils. So the splash, as I said earlier, was this drug that induced magic. Basically, that's what happened. And now Creed, he decides to test Kazan, who's Abysinnia's son, to check whether he's actually, whether he has Faceless One DNA. He's not that willing, and when he tries to, he gets killed by Creed. This angers Abysinnia since, she's a really, really protective mom. And to bring Kazan back to life, she basically puts in the soul of her father, who's the one who had actually, kind of helped restore Abysinnia's strength after she had been thrown off the balcony by Lord Vile when she was pregnant with Malevolent's son. Now, Abysinnia's father is a king of the Darklands that Augur Darkly is supposed to fight. Augur Darkly is Omen Darkly's brother, and he has this whole prophecy that he needs to fight the king of the Darklands. And to fight the king of the Darklands, he needs the obsidian blade, which would be an essential part of the whole quest related thing in Seasons of War. Now they kind of make Alice better, and Alice starts to now feel real emotion, but these days she's mostly just sad because she has not felt sadness. It's like an overdose of sadness for her. While the most important revelation comes, and that is, remember Dusk, who's the vampire who bit Val and also the one who carried Kazan's information to Val? He had actually once tasted the blood of these kids. These kid people, they do have some sort of Faceless One DNA in them, but not enough to turn them into Faceless Ones. But since we know that in Mortal Coil, Dusk had actually bitten Val, right? Val's blood had like 10 times the DNA that the kid people's blood had. So this basically means that Valkyrie is not a child of the ancients as we thought. She's a child of the Faceless Ones. Now, for the review. I like this book quite a lot. Like, it kind of really brought back the whole Skulduggery and Val united front. Like, we start to see the old friendship that they had like, before Dying of the Light. Resurrection was a pretty good book, but I think these Resurrection and Midnight were basically like, I guess, to set the mood for the rest of the series, the part 2, including Bedlam, Seasons of War, Dead or Alive, Until the End, and the Grimoire, obviously. This one is the one that kind of made me like fall in love with the second series as much as, well, more than the first 2 books had. Like, now I enjoy the part 2 of the series quite a lot as compared to before I read Bedlam. Over here, we start to see Valkyrie emerge out of her PTSD shell and kind of, become stronger and more resilient against fighting stuff. She's questioning herself whether she's as fun as she used to be. which is fine. So it's not the same as it was, obviously, because Skulduggery is obviously not, you know, totally mentally sane, but he's able to tell her that whatever tough times that you've gone through have made you the person you are. And I actually love this color scheme for this book, like for the cover. It's so pretty, like this whole redness. And over here, the back is also just gorgeous. It's so beautiful. Here we also see China's slightly cruel side come over. And overall, if I have to rate this book, I'd give it, I guess, 9 out of 10 because I liked it quite a lot, but the older series has my heart in it. That's it for the review. Thanks so much for sticking around until the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!